I'm Cynthia James, and this network is about changing lives one woman at a time. Hello and welcome to Women Awakening. I'm your host, Cynthia James, and I am so honored that I get to introduce you to fabulous women that are change makers, women that are game changers, way showers, women that have decided to take control in their lives to bring their best, their gifts, and their talents to the planet. I love doing this, and we've interviewed over 200 women around the world, and that is exciting to me. I do this every week. Please go to Women Awakening with Cynthia James. We're on Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, Spreaker, YouTube video, and you can also go to cynthiajames.net. That's my community, and you can sign up for my newsletter or join my private community where we have conversations. I am really happy to introduce you to someone I've known for a while. Her name is Wilene Dunn. She's a multifaceted professional dedicated to empowering others through her work as an author, an entrepreneur, and a coach. Her latest book is called Getting My Happy Back, and she invites readers to explore the intricate relationship between our environment, stress, and the choices we make. And she offers invaluable techniques to help us recognize the subtle nuances of our surroundings and understand how external factors influence our decisions. She's an accomplished author. She's written and published 2 children's books and a poetry collection. And she now extends her expertise to support aspiring authors, guiding them through the process of completing and publishing their book projects. And she has a membership site called writingthatbook.com. And in addition to writing, Wilene is the owner of WCD Speakers, where she collaborates with individuals aiming to build or enhance their speaking platforms. Wilene, welcome.
Thank you, Cynthia. That was a lot. When I wrote that, I didn't realize how much of that was there, but I love it. How are you? I love you too. I'm so honored to be here, and I'm just excited.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you here. And I want to start our conversation with how you grew up. You know, a lot of people think successful people are just sort of dropped into it. But where did you come from? How did you grow up?
So I grew up in Dallas. I had an alcoholic father, a very loving mother. However, we had some conflict in our family, but there was love too. And so I kind of had a journey of going through different experiences. I don't know that I've been asked that question, and I kind of rehearsed it, and then I thought, when you just asked it to me, I grew up in love and yet not always experiencing it. I think that's the best way to say that.
Yeah, I think that that's perfect. I mean, my father was an alcoholic and my stepfather was, violent and yet my mother was loving. And so I think it's a common thing for young people who grow up in those kinds of environments to experience love on one hand and disconnect and dysfunction on the other, you know?
Amen.
So how did you get into becoming an author?
I mean, it was fascinating. My story to me is amazing. When I got out of a career, I was 22 years in litigation support, and there just didn't seem to be any way out of that. So the way I addressed that, which is greater than me, is I said in my car one day, headed to another luncheon for my business, I said, Lord, I need a job I can do from anywhere and not sit in traffic. And I mean, 2 weeks later, I was laid off from my very last litigation support job. I got a job with a staffing agency that, little did I know, was the unfoldment to how this new business would go. And how that happened for me was that I got a book from a speaker. I got a book from my manager that she had seen a speaker speak. And I got the book, I read it, and I called that speaker and I said, "Hey, I want to work with you." And then that just started unfolding this business. And the way I did business at that staffing agency was exactly how I introduced my work as an agency versus a speakers bureau. I love working one-on-one and in partnership with the speakers. And so, and then that just led to publishing, writing
Right.
books and helping others write books. And it was a perfect unfoldment.
Yeah, well, that's that's beautiful. I love when I talk to women because there's never any like linear route. It's like circuitous and we find our way to different places at different times. So I want to know, you have a very strong spiritual life. We've connected there often. Talk to me about that.
It took me forever to get grounded in this idea that our consciousness creates, right? Religious science, science of mind, different platforms, Buddhism. I mean, there's a lot that are based on, a lot of spirituality is based on our consciousness creates. But random things are happening. No, they're not. Right? I, but that is such a journey. And I think the biggest challenge to taking a stand in that and being grounded in that is really having some evidence and demonstration around how my consciousness is created. Even when my mom put me in the mental institution, when I go back and look at that, where my consciousness was at that time, I was afraid of being alone. That which I feared came upon me. We even think as kids, we're not creating that stuff. Our consciousness is creating from the moment we take our first breath.
Well, first of all, thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that. And I want to ask you, while that was happening to you, I mean, did you feel betrayed? Did you feel isolated and lost?
Yes. Yes. I absolutely betrayed. I mean, one of the unfortunate belief systems that came out of that for me, a core belief I had to really work on, was people could harm me, because that felt very harming to me, to have people who you counted on do something that didn't feel helpful, right?
Yes.
But ultimately, it was helpful because I got my first miracle. I learned who I was. And then later being able to look back at how I created that situation, based in, the fear that came up on me of being left alone. What's the ultimate of being left alone but to have your mom put you in a mental institution?
Right. Well, I love this conversation because I want to say to the listeners, when we talk about co-creation, we don't talk about, well, you got cancer and you created it. What we
Right.
talk about is that something in your consciousness went out as a magnet and pulled it in for
Yes.
your own growth, for your own healing, for your own expansion. And so that's what it sounds like in that moment, because your greatest fear was that.
Yeah.
That's what became the reality. But in that, and I want to say this, not everybody gets the revelations or the insights of why they've been gifted something can be challenging. So you get out of this experience, and how do you find your spiritual self?
Through a lot of work, right? But a lot of work. And I love how you just reframe that and frame that, because I think that is a challenge for people to hear that we're creating it. You're right. Because I mean, I wouldn't have created certain things, right? I mean, logically, I wouldn't have created them. But that is your magic wand to getting out of anything you're experiencing now. Anything that's challenging you now is to go, okay, there's something in me that is calling this forward for my learning, for my good, for my greater good. There's something in me that I've experienced. And if I could tell a quick little story, I had a friend today say, well, she was having conflict with her daughter. And they had had a conversation that wasn't working. And so the mom's like, well, you just need to, right? Telling other people what they need to do to make us okay. If you'll just this and you'll just that, I'll be okay. And we talked through that, and she got to that that's a regular theme in her life of wanting external validation because she's not internally validating. So
Yes.
that shows up. And I've heard that mirror, mirror thing all my life. Like, well, if you see it out here, it's the mirror. Like, what does that mean? I know what that means now. It means that when you are doing something to you, when you are beating yourself up for something or for being you or for not doing enough, then the people around you that are beating you up are doing that because you are doing it to you.
100%. And that, that's why when I do work with people on forgiveness, it's like, you there's spiritually there's nothing to forgive. It's really about the judgments you have of others and yourself, and
Yes.
what choices are you going to make to move forward so that you cannot keep recreating those patterns and those relationships and those belief experiences. So
Amen.
so before we started, we you spoke a little bit about prayer for you. Why is prayer important for you?
So I practice spiritual mind treatment, which is a science of mind practice, and I do it to change my consciousness. I'm not changing other people. I'm not asking for other people to be a certain way so that I can be okay. I am saying, how can I be okay? How can I do this for me so that those externally don't have activity in making me okay. They just get to be them and we get to enjoy each other. So one of the ways I do that is spiritual mind treatment. And that's a certain kind of prayer where we recognize that there's a source that holds the stars in the sky and the seas in the shore. We're not doing that. We are individualized expressions of that because we're here, right now, being breathed. We can ask for what we want. So if we're in, a disharmonious relationship, I prayed with my friend. We did the spiritual mind treatment around having harmony in the relationship with her kids, and and that just shifts your consciousness because now you're asking for something outside of what maybe you were doing before, drawing in that disharmony. Now you're saying, I really want that harmony. And then you say, I'm grateful, and you release it. You release it to that which holds the stars in the sky and the seas and the shore. I mean, can you imagine if there was something wasn't doing that, stars couldn't just hang in the abyss. I mean, it's out there, there's something else that is greater. And I want to know more about that and tap into it in my own consciousness. And that's just getting bigger and bigger for me, watching how and the things I've created in my life and what I'm creating. And I want to be a messenger of that because when I got that I'm creating this, I knew that I could change it. And it didn't
Yes.
mean I could change my maybe if I had a physical illness that I could change the physical illness, although I believe that we can start, healing things in our consciousness. But when consciousness changes, Florence Scovel Shinn is one of my favorites, and
Yeah, I love her.
she says that when we change our thoughts and our consciousness, in a twinkling of an eye, all conditions around us change.
That's right. That's right. And I want to address that because I also want to say that when just because you do a prayer doesn't mean you have control over anything or anyone. You
Right.
know, I had an adrenal issue, and um, I'm very clear that that adrenal issue came because I was being asked to look at my doing things in the outside world for validation through accomplishment.
Mm,
And if I didn't do that, then who was I? If I wasn't eating for my to deal with my stress as my family had done of origin had done, then who was I? And so the prayer became to, how do I wake up? How do I become more conscious? How do I become more clear? And when other people are in my life that are challenged, it's like I'm not praying for them to change. I'm praying for their health and well-being and their harmony for their highest and best.
Yes.
So I want to know, how do you get your happy back?
So, I mean, the book really is an example of that process. I met Dr. Renee Ostertag, who wrote the book with me, um, just online because I was experiencing some physical pain, and I was just out of a relationship, and my body felt like it was going to crack in half if every step I took. I was so stressed, and I met her and we walked through some processes about just how you release that. And one of the ways that I know for me releases is talking. But not necessarily talking to someone, but talking it out. So when I get in a class and they say journal, my journal is I have a voice recorder and I'm like la 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 la, la, and this and you said that and you did that. And if I want to track that stuff, it also translates, into writing. But I need to hear my voice.
Yes, yes.
So that's what I do, and that helped heal me, and then we decided to write this book together. And it is that process of asking yourself, where was I when this pain started? What was I thinking? What's going on when I couldn't talk? What was happening in that moment? I had somebody reach out to me, a speaker, lovely human being, amazing. And she just reached out. She had a speaking engagement and said, I have woken up with laryngitis and I need some help. And I know you're connected spiritually. Do your work, right? Do the work on this thing. And I love being that conduit for that. That is amazing to me that I'm showing up that way because I want to do that for me and assist others in that like you do. I mean, you're that as well in the world. And I love that about you. And anyway, I did my work. She did her work. She's like, I don't need advice. We just need some consciousness work around being okay in this moment. And that's when everything rushes to support us. Mary Manoworsi used to say, every blade of grass has a angel over it saying, grow, grow, grow.
Well, I love that. And so I know, for those who are on YouTube, hold up your book so we can see it.
Oh, yes.
Beautiful, getting my happy back. I love that. And I want to talk about getting your happy back when there's disappointment.
Yeah.
And it could be in relationships, it could be in career, it could be finances. But what do you think are the first things people are invited to do when they're in the level of disappointment?
Yeah. So breathe, right? I listened to you minister at Unity last Sunday, and one of the things you were talking about was being with your mom and overwhelm of trying to figure out what you were going to keep and what was going to the nursing care center. And you said, then I called my prayer partner, and the first thing he said to you was, breathe, right?
Yeah.
And that's the first thing that you do is you breathe, and then you start asking some questions. Um, you know, what is what why am I disappointed? What in me is disappointed? I think again, just really going within. Renee and I talk a lot in this book about the dialogue that we have when something shows up. The body and its pain is just an alert system. So if
Mm.
something shows up, Louise Hay does a lot of work around You Can Heal Your Life. That if a certain thing hurts, go to that book and you can look and say, okay, I'm having joy issues, my shoulder's hurting. So she has some of that guidance, and we talk about that in the book a little bit. But how our consciousness creates. So if for example, I had a friend of mine who went to visit an in-law that had always had some tension there, and then she came home with some pain in her body.
Mm,
And
mm.
so then she had to just take a look at what was causing the pain. And I think we're also so fast to run to a doctor get a pill for that. Instead of, okay, wait, I was fine and now I'm not. So what did I do between the time I was fine and the time I wasn't fine? Um, and that's what the book's about, is really gives you some tools, techniques, and tricks to ask those questions to help move through those moments faster.
Yeah. Well, there is a mind body connection. And, you said, I loved when you said the body is an alert system, it brings messages. And so stopping long enough to inquire, about what is going on. And what I want to say to anybody listening is that, you know, if everything is spirit, if everything is universal oneness, then that includes doctors and medicines and all that other stuff. However, what you want to do first is find out, where are you mentally, emotionally, spiritually? Where are you that's connected to this discomfort that you're having? And is there anything you can do within yourself to transform that energy? And then
Yeah.
if you need outside help, go, whether it's a therapist or a coach or a counselor, you do that. But I think it's important to really, I love what you just said. It's like breathe, pause, stop, and just see what's happening. I guess I just want to ask you, you work with speakers, and there are a lot of people that want to be speakers, but are afraid of being visible or don't know how to craft their message, don't understand what it means to be in an audience, or try to emulate somebody else that's a speaker. What do you want to say to people who really want to be speakers?
Breathe. I think everything starts there. That's the life force. And then ask some questions. Questions like, what who do I want to talk to? Who's this message for? What impact do I want to have? Because when we set our intention for impact, it's just what we were talking about, consciousness. That's what begins to become reflective. And when we say what we want in that, who we want to touch, then the message starts writing itself. And then you write down, where am I most myself? I call it your innate self, the one that you woke up with when you were 2, what did it do? Like, I was always super happy and super enthusiastic and wanted to talk to people, My sister wasn't. I would be the one to go in the grocery store and ask for directions. So when you think about yourself as a younger child, what was it that you wanted people to know or do, or, who were you? Because that's where your message it's grown now as we grow and mature our message and can articulate it, but that's where it started. Like, for me, it started in creating miracles and knowing that I had a voice, that I have a faith in that which is greater, that has created something. And so that's my message to people. We have a consciousness and a faith. I love what you said though about asking for help, because there are blind spots and we do need people. We need each other.
Mhm.
We're a collective, we're a group. And so it is important to outreach. But I always encourage people, go you first.
Yep.
You first. And I think the greatest command, the Jesus's command, he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and your neighbor as yourself. Right? So it starts with you, and then your intuition. Again, Florence has a great book called The Magic Power of Intuition, and she really talks about listening. And so our book is about drawing people to the listening of what's going on, and then hearing, if you get a hunch to go to a doctor, a certain doctor, or call a friend, or do that. Do that. Don't ignore those things. And keeping your conscience clean, I have some fun stories about that. I think, just to draw that point, where when we're listening, I was sitting with my mother. It's just a fun story. Sitting with my mother, and she mentioned a guy that we know, his name's Kevin. And then the lady comes out to greet a guy that's picking up a pizza and says, are you here to pick up an order for Kevin? And he goes, yeah, my name's Kevin. And then my friend texted me from Ohio, and her husband's name is Kevin.
Kevin.
And so I knew I needed to ask about Kevin, right? And he had just started a new day, a new job, and so listen to all the intuition. So if you hear go to a doctor, go to that doctor, but check in with you first. Just be your first. You do know. You do know. You
Right.
are a wonderful, magical creation.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. So, Wilene, how do people find you?
So I have WileneDunn.com, and you can reach me at Wilene at WCDenterprises.com. That's my email. And that's for my business. If you want to become a speaker or write a book or just want to talk about that process, I make it pretty easy on the writing the book. Like we can actually write with you, not to be co-authors, but really go through that process with you and help you move some of those because when you say you want to be a speaker or you want to be an author, if you're not doing that, there's something that's preventing. So we'll
Absolutely.
ask those questions like what's in your way. We started with a lovely woman who wanted to write a book. I met her in a hair salon, and we had to work on her. Why would anyone want to hear from me? Why would anyone read my book? Why would anyone? And we got an affirmation that every time that popped up, she said it, and she has now written her first book.
Oh, that is so incredible.
But you can
That's
reach me, WileneDunn.com, WCDenterprises.com. I'm also WCDspeakers.com is my speaker development site. Writingthatbook.com is
yeah.
my writing site, but directly to me, Wilene at WCDenterprises.com will reach me. My phone number is everywhere. I'm Googleable. And so just find me if you want to find me. I'm here.
That's beautiful. So I ask the same last question of every guest. This show is called Women Awakening. What do you think is the most important thing about women awakening on the planet in this moment?
Because when you change, everything changes. So we can be the one that makes the change for the world. You really can change the world with your vibration that ripples out like that stone tossed in the water that ripples out. And when we're being loved, love is being felt in the world.
It's beautiful, Blaine. Thank you so much for being here. I've just so
Thank
enjoyed
you,
our
Cynthia.
conversation.
Yes.
All right, ladies, I say the same thing to you every week with different words. This is your time to be your most powerful, your most dynamic, your most mighty self. This is a time for women emerging on the planet. Our talents, our gifts, our hearts, and our minds are needed. So make no mistake about it that there's no time to waste. Step into you. The world is waiting. I'm grateful to be with you. I love you, and I really look forward to our next show. Many blessings.